so it's that same line though. So, actually, I'll go ahead and send an email now so I don't forget.
Okay, I didn't know if you were ready. Okay, I'd like to call the Utilities Committee meeting together at 6:04 PM. The first thing on the agenda is for bids for the Spruce and Jefferson Water Project. This will be to change, there's a 4-inch service right now, to go to an 8-inch. And the entire length of Jefferson Street and Spruce between Maplewood and Jefferson. And besides changing the service itself, be changing the hydrants, curb boxes that will be included in this project. So if there are any comments or anything concerning this,
Move it forward.
okay.
The only thing I'll add is this is an OPWC project, so it will be paid 50/50 and I believe a $50,000 zero-interest loan.
That's great.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda, there's just one more thing. Foxwood Estates Sanitary Extension. This has been talked about before, but now it's actually needs to be done. It's, if anyone doesn't know, Foxwood is actually off of Bryn Mawr, going toward the end of Bryn Mawr. I said that just in case someone is unfamiliar with that specific area. This goes back to the EPA, which is something that really can't get around on that when they are saying this has to be done. Their septics are outdated. They need to be replaced. And the project will be 100% covered by a water grant. And no taxpayer money will be included.
So this is that project that's been lingering for years.
Since 2014,
And
Yes.
if I'm reading this correctly, they are paying,
100%.
well, I mean, aren't the residents paying for their hook? I thought it said something about assessing their properties.
If you're looking at something old, yes. So in 2018, I put in a tracking sheet, but evidently it didn't move forward because we didn't have the funding until years, I think early 2023, we were awarded.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, nobody will be assessed.
It's just the last paragraph in our packet says something about the county has provided options for assessment being made to the affected properties.
But what are you reading?
I don't know, it was some,
There's
it's just the page that was attached after the tracking sheet.
Oh, okay. I didn't
So maybe it's old, I don't know.
print it out.
You all see what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it talked about the homeowners paying a $6,000 hookup fee.
Yeah, that's what I was,
Oh,
that's what I was referring
well,
to.
all right. So maybe there is, maybe that's going to the health department and wasn't covered in our grant. If we can cover it in our grant, we would certainly do that, if there's enough money.
Yeah, that might be old documentation. Anyway, it's nice that they're finally starting to fix that problem.
Okay, if there are no other comments,
Go ahead and move it forward.
okay, then I just request if there is a management update for this project.
Well, I just have something else that goes along with utilities. I've received one copy yesterday, and then I got it from, same thing from another source. It's a flyer. I've got one here, there's one in the back. but it's a consumer alert that Dominion Energy is asking the PUCO for a 30% increase. Now, Dominion is the one that delivers the gas to us. Our agreements for our prices are with a separate company, but they're talking about the cost of getting it to your house that they're asking for. And in some cases, it could be as high as $29 a month increase. So it is significant, especially for a city like Ravenna when we have a lot of elderly people on fixed incomes. So if you're interested in sending a letter or something to them, the flyer's back there, and I'll have a couple here also.
All right, I will call the committee meeting to a close at 10 after 6.
Okay. 6:10, I will call the planning committee meeting to order. We have 4 items on the agenda. The first item is a contract with Forever, I think that should be Lawn, and appropriate $172,000. I wanted to also preface that that was part of the ARPA process where we allocated money that we were getting from the federal government, about $570,000. There was some concern about whether or not the process of us appropriating those funds meant that departments could go and just buy whatever they had requested money for. But there was a variety. I mean, in this case, they actually had a quote, and so the quote is actually right, the same amount, a dollar amount that they requested through the ARPA process. But in some cases, they were just rough estimates. So we were just allocating funds. There's going to be an agenda item, I believe, on the Public Safety Committee meeting where there was a purchase. And I guess it was just a misunderstanding. It was the cot for the ambulance or
Stryker.
yeah. And that's, I don't view that as a big deal. It was the amount of money they requested. So, but for all those items we allocated money for, like this one, they still need to go to a regular process if the amount is above $25,000. Now, in this case, they're going through Sourcewell, and if you remember, Sourcewell is an alternative to bidding. So we can just go ahead and approve this contract since it's through Sourcewell without having to go through the bidding process. Okay, so any questions about this? And by the way, this is for doing resurfacing Chestnut Hills Park. It's long overdue, I believe, to make it a little more comfortable, a little more safe. You can see the quote in your packet is just under $171,000, and that's about the amount we allocated through ARPA. Are we okay to pass this on?
Absolutely.
Okay, then that's what we will do.
I would just mention, Rob,
Yes.
on the, it does say and appropriate 172,000. I don't think we actually need to appropriate 172,000.
Oh,
So
yeah.
just FYI, so when we're doing the work.
Yeah, I didn't write the, okay, so, oh, then the tracking
It's
sheet?
already appropriated.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
okay.
No, just make sure.
Thank you. Make note of that. Okay. Second item on the agenda is, and I'm not sure what this is, amend codified ordinance section 881 and repeal ordinance 2023-124. There wasn't anything in the packet, but this has to do with taxes?
Yeah, so this is an ordinance, we passed the 2023-124 last year. This was required by RETA and by the Senate and the House bill that required us to update our codified ordinances. It's required by every municipality in Ohio. Some of the language in there was kind of different, so I'm not sure. It referred to House Bill 49 and such like that. That's not the correct House bills and all that. So I was just about to submit it to RETA, and they wanted it, and then I was noticing some of the stuff didn't really line up with the actual code. So I worked with Semino and Chelsea, and we got a new one updated. So it'll be, yeah, with the language that needs to be updated in our codified. So,
Okay, so we'll have the language by committee of the whole? or
Yeah,
at least
if
by
you
the,
don't have it already, if, then, yeah,
yeah, it wasn't in, I don't think it was in the packet, was it? Okay.
okay.
But it's been worked out.
Yeah, it's already ready. It's,
All right.
yeah, I finished a couple weeks ago.
Go ahead and pass this on. Okay, so we will do that. Third item on the agenda is, well, it's just our ongoing safety in City Hall buildings. Last meeting, we approved the addition for Parks and Recs to be part of that process. I'm leaving it on the agenda so we don't forget about it, and just to see if there's any updates, if there's any questions or concerns. If not, we can move on.
So with Parks and Rec, are we still looking at, with different sites, or are we looking at the original site with that?
There is no original site with Parks and Rec,
Well, the
in my
original that we
opinion.
had always assumed, from what was presented to us as we go back to that drooling story, was everything was gonna be at there,
The way I'm approaching it is, we need to establish a price tag to the recreation center before anything is decided.
okay.
So Sean Thompson did submit a revised proposal. I don't know if it came in this weekend, he was on vacation. I saw it this morning. So I'm trying to leave this up to Judy to maneuver. But again, that's the way I've approached this. Again,
Well, I just wondered if the drawing that they're gonna do, if it's gonna be something that is a building that can be moved anywhere, so,
correct, yes.
So
yes,
that's kind of what I
yes.
guess I'm meaning to say more so, is
Yeah.
the drawing, that they're gonna come up with, well, depending, whether the size is obviously much bigger or much smaller, I think too would be depending if it would go there, or it could maybe be bigger if it was somewhere else, but the actual structure that you're looking at, that's being done, could be moved anywhere, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not, it's not, it'll be beneficial for the city to have an idea of
Now-
cost, size, cost, function.
Was Osborne Park included in this one? No, this is a separate one?
But that could be a location for a new facility, for a parks facility, potentially.
I mean, as far as the study that we're doing with,
With Sean Thompson, no.
yeah,
All he's doing is looking at the footprint of the building, and once that's established, then that can be moved around to different locations.
okay.
Is
See where it would
he
fit.
looking at the footprint of the building as being completely separate? If it does go onto the old high school site, is it going to be completely separate from that of the city hall and the safety building? Or is it going to be something that might be able to be intertwined?
At this point, it would be a separate building.
So it would take up more space per se, rather
Well-
than being able to maybe combine it into the buildings with City Hall that already,
Well, I don't know how you could combine, I mean, you can share a common wall between two buildings, sure,
well, you can always build up.
but you can build up, sure.
Financially, it's typically more feasible to build up than out.
For houses.
That was my only question.
Any other questions, comments about our ongoing planning for the safety, City Hall, and Parks and Rec buildings?
We do need to move the safety buildings forward,
Okay.
and I would say the next step is, I will ask the Sean Thompson to sharpen his pencil, so to speak, and then we have to talk about financing the project. And if we're gonna, how we're gonna finance it. I think that's the biggest challenge. That is the biggest challenge.
Yeah. Okay, well, send us the information as soon as you get it.
We'll try to get something next month.
Okay, good. All right, so then the last item on the agenda is recreational marijuana. And I want to first mention the terminology here. I did send Chelsea, and she distributed a couple of changes, new chapters to our Code of Ordinances regarding adult use cannabis. You know, there's a channel on some cable systems, and I have it, that actually broadcasts some of the things that go on down in Columbus, various House and Senate meetings and so forth. And this was a while back, but I remember they were talking about the passage of issue 2, which had to do with recreational marijuana. And I can't remember who it was, but one representative mentioned that part of the reason they label it, and if you look at the ordinance or the state regulations and laws regarding it, they call it adult cannabis, because this representative said the word marijuana is kind of disrespectful, pejorative. And I actually looked it up, and I guess it is. I don't remember why, but at the time it struck me. So that's why if you look at what I did with the ordinances, you don't see marijuana mentioned, you see it as adult cannabis. That's the reason. Of course, we have existing code regarding medical marijuana, and that's still labeled, but that's the way the state has defined it. So anyway, what I did was, I took the 2 chapters in our ordinances, I think it's 860 and 862, and then added 861 and 863, and just replicated what we had for our medical marijuana ordinances for adult use cannabis. Obviously changing the words, and a few, you know, I tried to go through, I can't say with a fine-tooth comb, but change things that were relevant. And there's not a plan for moving this forward tonight, okay? Because I think you all need some time to read it, and we need to sort of strategize what we want to actually do, if we want to even do what I'm proposing. The only questions I had in going through this was whether or not we wanted to replicate how we've established medical marijuana, you know, parallel for adult use cannabis. Right now, we allow dispensaries for medical marijuana in commercial districts in I-1. C1, the Central Business District, and C2, and then I-1 districts. Is everyone okay with that? Okay. Well, think about it. You don't have to answer it tonight. And then the other question I had is we don't limit the number of adult or medical marijuana dispensaries in the city, but is that something we might want to consider doing? You know, not to say that we'll be inundated with shops opening up all over town, but something to consider. We've talked about moratoriums. We're going through the comprehensive planning process. Now would be the time, if we do decide to go this route and create a couple of new chapters, to decide whether we want to limit the total number of dispensaries within the city limits.
Could you put a limit on the number of dispensaries by saying you couldn't have so many within so many feet of each other?
Yeah.
Instead of saying 5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah, you could do it that way. You could limit the number in a particular district or whatever, certain distance.
But in reality, how many do you need in the city? I mean, how many are they a tax revenue? I mean, do they bring in a lot of money? Because they go by the employees, and usually the employees, there aren't that many. So I'm just wondering.
I certainly don't see, like, 50 cannabis facilities lining up to come into the city of Ravenna, but I also feel like, I could go out and buy cigarettes or beer pretty much on every corner in the city of Ravenna too, so, kind of looking at it like that, that's kind of where I come from with it.
Yeah, for now at least. I don't know that that'll ever be changed, but it's not like an alcohol license where, convenience store will be selling marijuana.
It's still new, but I don't know.
It could happen
Against
someday.
it.
I don't know. Maybe the public would be okay with that. I don't
Right.
know. But for now, it's much more regulated.
Yeah.
And licenses have to be approved through the state, so it's not like, and I don't even know, maybe, I haven't looked closely at the state code, whether or not they limit within a certain geographic area the number of licenses
I'm
they
curious why
provide.
all the other communities are doing it, where they're jumping on and, we have like 3 other communities in our area that are putting moratoriums on temporarily. So why, I mean,
I
you know.
don't, to me, it doesn't matter, because unless something changes down in Columbus, they won't be able to, nobody will be able to open a new adult use cannabis dispensary until September at the earliest. So I don't know what a moratorium is necessarily going to accomplish. Now, if they change the laws, and the governor wanted to allow them to do it within a month or two, by kind of connecting them to the medical marijuana dispensaries, but that hasn't been enacted yet, so. But what I would envision is that our current medical marijuana dispensary would become an adult use cannabis dispensary, so, and again, I would be concerned if we wanted to eliminate or limit the number in the city, now would be the time to do it. And we could. Look like you have a question.
Well, I was just going to say, as I look at 861 and 863, and you say that we've copied over 860 and 862 to make those, and took out some things that didn't seem to apply. I guess I would kind of think that I need additional time to look at what 860 says and see which of those provisions are we need to have in the new chapter. Because, I mean, the changes, and as I recall, the medical marijuana has to get the license through the state, they have to put up some money, they've got to do all these different things. Are we envisioning then all those same procedures going with the adult use, and are they necessary? So I guess it's a lot of questions. I commend that it's a great start for us to look at it, but there are a lot of questions here still.
Yeah, and by the way, I mean, all I did was technically change, for example, the medical marijuana we had originally in our ordinance that we created included a fee. And then later, after we did, the state said we weren't allowed to do it, so we repealed that. It's still in there, it says repealed, I just didn't include it here, so. And then there is a separate board. There's the medical marijuana goes through like a pharmacy-type board, but the adult use one has its own board. But anyway, yeah, no, I get your point. This was not meant to be moved forward with any immediate action, and it's gonna be a long time before anything can be done anyway, in my opinion. So, but is everyone good with this process?
I do have a question for Bob. Bob, do you see any pros and cons right now where we set by not like moving any, being more aggressive, like with the moratorium, or like what some of like Streetsboro, Aurora, Kent, all of the other communities are doing? I mean,
Based on what Frank Semino has said, if it's not in the code as permitted or conditionally permitted, then it's not permitted.
okay.
So if he believes he can defend it, then so be it.
So in a sense, we have a moratorium until we put something
So
together.
we're safe, okay. And
according
not
to
that
Frank.
we're saying we don't want them, we're just, until we know what all the guidelines are, the right area, you know, I just wanna make sure it's, you know, in the right place, and if there's anything that could become negative from them, I wanna make sure that we're proactive and address it. Unlike the big vape shop that got, you know, shut down with all the neon lights in our downtown that, you know, showed up out of nowhere. You know what I mean? So,
Which they weren't permitted, but for us to go through, we would have to go
Right.
through an eviction process, just like we would evict a tenant. You
Yeah.
can't just go lock the door unless safety forces saw a major issue. That's how we got in, as they were Adam George was investigating their sprinkler, or their fire alarm system hadn't worked. And that's how, then the sheriff did their own thing, but my only comment, Rob, is to definitely consider placing this use as a conditionally permitted use.
It is, it's the
So
same
planning-
as,
So planning commission.
yeah. It's
That out.
that's the way medical marijuana is set up, and that's the way it's written currently
Oh.
for the
Ours
adult
is
use.
correct, except in the I-1, medical is, all three activities are permitted in the I-1. But in the other locations, C1, Central Business District, C2, they're conditionally permitted. And
Yeah.
that was only medical dispensing, not cultivating or manufacturing. But in the I-1, we
Yeah.
allow.
Yeah, and we're only talking about dispensaries in this chapter. I'm gonna look through that and see what, I thought I read that it can only, a dispensary can only go in if it's approved by the planning commission, because I believe it's defined the same way as an,
Okay.
conditional use.
In the states?
No, no, in our
state law?
ordinance,
Yeah, I have it here, right.
yeah.
And the other thing I think should be considered, if you've ever been around a processing plant, the odor that they emit smells like a family of skunks lives in the neighborhood. So, and once they're in, they're in. I'm serious.
No, I
Go
know- I know
find
that-
one
I
and
know
drive
the smell.
around. And would you want that in your ward?
Yeah.
So now's the time to eliminate it, because right now, we have it in the I-1, it's permitted.
But you're talking about processing.
Correct,
Yeah.
and that's medical marijuana, but I would imagine the state's gonna release
You're gonna have a lot of mad,
commercial processing.
Yes.
Commercial growing, not just medical.
Yeah, well, it's another good question. Do we want to address adult use cannabis processing? And what's the other one? There's two.
Manufacturing,
Manufacturing.
processing, and selling.
Yeah, so manufacturing,
Or
and what's the
growing,
difference
whatever
between?
you wanna say.
Yeah, okay. But I
Right
thought,
now, medical
We
is
could always put
grown.
them in
Yeah, but-
armory.
And
but
then
the-
it goes and becomes processed.
right, I
into
think,
other things.
I think growing it's fine, but I believe the processing part has to be affiliated with some kind of university research component or something like that.
Even
growing smells.
not just medical, but I haven't read into depths of it. but
Yeah, well,
For
we're
commercial
only
sales.
dealing with dispensaries here, but that's a good question to think, do we want to revisit the processing and and the growing of marijuana? It's food for thought, but
It's on your master plan.
I think the immediate concern is gonna be dispensing. Because the problem is, right now, you can smoke marijuana legally, you just can't buy it anywhere.
You can grow it in your backyard.
Yeah, you can grow it in your backyard, that's true. I don't know how long it takes to
but
grow an
it-
adult
it-
plant.
It does parlay into how is the state gonna handle the growing of medical marijuana versus the growing of commercial marijuana?
Yeah.
Are they going to regulate that?
I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Well, we'll find out when somebody knocks on our door and
Right,
says, I
so
want
we need to be thinking
farm this
sooner
here.
than later with some of
But
these
I would
things.
assume that
agree.
Mr. Semino's application of dispensaries would hold for the other two components as well. If we don't have it
We don't have that.
in our code, they can't do it. So, now, if the state allows an existing grower, to also grow adult use, there may not be anything we can do about that. So, I don't know, but let's just focus on dispensing it for now. Any other questions or concerns? Mayor, do you have a management update for planning?
No, I've been taking this all in. You hit on the thing I'm concerned with. We plan and lay it all out, and then the state takes it over and says, nope, this is how it's gonna be.
Well,
And I hear the horror stories of, in Colorado, you can't walk down the street without smelling it. And of course, we're very concerned about it being available, but people that buy it, are they gonna be restricted on where they can smoke it?
yeah, I don't know how that works.
I don't know, I feel like we can walk down the street now and smell it. So,
Yeah.
Well, look, I play in a rock band.
right,
It's, when it
It's
wasn't
everywhere.
legal, you could smell it.
and that's where I was
Blossom.
going with it. I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And.
But you're right, it probably will get worse.
Mayor, you referenced Colorado. Colorado banned it in public places, public parks, and smoking it beside just in private residences. So there is a ban on it there. I don't know what Ohio's going to do, but that
I think they've
can
left it up
happen.
to
Yeah.
private entities to decide
Yeah.
for themselves. Okay. Then in that case, I will adjourn the planning committee at 6:34.
And I will call Information Systems to order at 6:34. One item on the agenda, just wanted to share some information. And before we kind of flip through this, a couple things. The city survey that we did, I really wanted to use it as a way to maybe educate some residents on some of the services that we have. I know in talking to residents, they didn't know we had things like gas aggregation, electric aggregation. They thought we did the recycling, those kind of things. So a piece of this was just some information sharing. So was letting people know that we had some of these things available. And I was really actually surprised that the gas and electric aggregations, the more people don't use them than do use them or are aware of them. So, kind of learning things like that, plus learning things about communication-wise, using the website a little bit differently, was through here. We did get some comments on some of this stuff. I am going through the comments. I'm gonna send them to the department heads for each, and plus city council for you guys to look through. I wanna make sure there's no names in them before they're, sent out, because I don't wanna share that information publicly, especially because it's a comment. And I don't want to target, to look like we're targeting anybody if it's something negative. So I wanna make sure before those comments go out that that's kind of gone through. And again, let the department heads see them first as well.
Were there any things with the comments that seem to be a pattern with any of, or have you not looked at them in that?
No, I've
way?
looked through them. I mean, you definitely had your outliers. You could really see your people that were not fans of Ravenna at all, and then people that really, there was a lot of those, but there wasn't any big patterns, no. One of the things that I did notice is, for as much as we talked about the safety piece, and that's what kind of brought this about, is people felt safe here. Oh, and that was really great to see. People have, the 200 and some people that took it, people had an A+, or were positive reports for our police and fire. I mean, those were the safety services. That's what we originally intended the survey for. So do you feel safe? Most folks said, yeah, absolutely. It was like, I don't even know what page it's on. It's in here. Overall, how safe do you feel in your neighborhood? And so it's really, that was really positive as far as the results went. So that was nice to see. It was nice to see that we were moving in the right direction for some of those things. Obviously, some of the comments were, why aren't you paving Main Street? So, kind of those comments that we know why we're not paving Main Street. I think too, seeing the amount of people that have never participated or came to a council meeting, a board meeting, a design review, any of our meetings that we had, that out of the people that took the survey. So they took the time to take the survey, which is great, but they've never sat in these seats here for anything. So, not that I want everyone to flood us, but to get a better understanding of how everything works, some education out that way as well. So I'm going to, like I said, go through the comments, send them to the department heads, send them to all of you guys, just to make sure I'm revoking. If we're talking about the engineer, guess what? We have one. So, we know that it's gonna be Bob if it's mentioned. Or this, so working through that. But really, it was a positive outcome, I think. It showed that we are doing a lot of great things. And it's a really nice baseline to see kind of some of the things that we need to work on. So that education piece is huge on the aggregation programs. This is a service we have for our residents. They really don't know it's there, even though we know it's there, but how can we get it out to them differently? How can we share the information to them differently? And then working on the communication as far as when we have meetings, where can we put that? When, we're doing events, that was mentioned a bit. Was having like a one place to know where all the events are happening in Ravenna. Because, we have our chamber stuff, our Main Street stuff, this church is doing something. But to have like one place to go to be able to check out what's happening, I think that was some feedback, so.
Well, I know can't rely on the internet, because I know some people that don't have any internet and they're not interested. And I know some people, the only way they're finding things out is through a water bill.
Well, and I think remembering that when you communicate with anybody, you don't ever communicate in just one way. So
Yes.
if we're gonna post it on the internet, how else can we put it? Are we putting it on the board in front of, on the courthouse lawn if it's something that's important? You know, are we putting it in the newspaper, or the Portager, or the Record Courier, those kind of things, because people all gather information differently, so we can't share information just one way. Like, I can tell you, I have never seen my water bill, so I wouldn't know what's in my water bill. I don't pay my water bill, my husband does, so don't worry, it gets paid. But, so, you know, looking to see different ways of communication that work, because you're right, not everybody does use the internet, not everybody reads the paper. But somebody might be walking downtown and read the board to see, hey, there's a council meeting tomorrow night, maybe I should stop by. Those kind of things. So I will make sure that information gets out to everybody, but I just wanted to share see if you guys had any questions on these questions that were sent out.
So you're saying that what we have in front of us are, it's the complete survey, all 47 questions, just not the comments
not the
that come
comments.
every few questions?
Yes.
And we will receive those at
Yes.
a later date?
Yep.
Okay.
So are we gonna, once that you get them to the main, or the building department, you know, Parks and Rec and stuff, are you going to, like, have a meeting, or, you know, like, how are we going to implement that some of these things are addressed?
Well, some of the things that need to be addressed would be implemented by some of the, if, let's say Chief Wallace, for example, sees something on there that's mentioned multiple times, maybe there's something they need to change. That's gonna be up to them to do it on their own. We can certainly I'll do a committee next month, because this is nothing we're really moving forward, and just kind of touch base on
I mean,
any
if there's any
feedback that I got.
ordinances that might,
Yeah.
you know, that out of this, if there's an ordinance or anything that council can create to maybe help something, or, you know, a need for something,
Absolutely,
you know, that
Yeah.
would be, I think, our part to do.
yeah, we could do that. All right.
I think, Rob, just to poke you a little bit, on the very last question, what was it, nearly 3/4 are happy with the recycling? So,
3/4 are happy with the recycling?
Very sad.
very satisfied,
Everyone's
satisfied
happy
or
with the
okay.
recycling.
I think the concern, I think, is
Okay.
just
I'm happy with the recycling.
considerations moving forward when that contract comes up. The other thing I think that the
wow.
mayor just mentioned was questions 41 and 42, how many are just unaware that we participate in an aggregation program?
Well, I'm confused about that, because I think it was last week, I can't remember which one it was now. I think it was the gas, but you have to opt out.
For one
And-
of them you have to
Well-
opt in, and the other one you have to
No, I
opt
think you
out.
have to opt out of both.
And apparently, I've had a handful of residents that have contacted me regarding both the aggregation programs, where they were asking who should be on the bill. And they recently purchased or moved into the area, and it's not automatically putting new residents that buy into the aggregation. So it's something that we need to look into as to if somebody may have opted out that owned that residence years ago. And now the new residences aren't automatically enrolled into the aggregation. So it's something that we need to look into and see how we can get that information out to people.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I think we all should have gotten letters, though, in the mail saying, you are a the city has an aggregation program, and here's how you can opt out. Do nothing and you're in. Now, maybe that's something people think is junk mail, it doesn't apply to them.
Oh, yeah,
But,
I would think. We have a
yeah.
lot of that. Or maybe it's something as simple as at the balloon affair, or, you know, we set up a booth for Halloween. You know, we set up something and have information on it, so we can share it with residents that are walking through. I mean, I think that there's positive ways, that's ways to, you know, to talk to members of our community, but to be able to share that information in that one more way. So we're getting it in the mail, we're getting it through, you know, it's on the website, but maybe it's that one-on-one conversation. Are you a Ravenna resident? Do you utilize these things? And then being able to provide that.
If you want to check the validity of the answers to questions 41 and 42, you could go back and look at the percentage of people that are in the aggregate programs now and compare us to what people are saying here. I would possibly predict that our participation in the aggregation programs are higher than what the responses are saying here.
Could very well be.
Because you have to opt out of those programs.
Yeah, I'm saying,
Yeah.
I think a number do not know that they're in it. possibly.
Well, but just remember, too, the first question asks if you're a resident. And
Oh, okay.
so there's only 137,
Residents that participated.
yeah.
Okay.
and So if 100 or 52 say yes, that's still a pretty low number.
Yes.
And again, we can put this stuff out there.
Oh, I
And we
agree.
can put it everywhere, and look how many people
I mean,
choose.
the Main Street paving is a prime example. We've been talking about that for years, and we get yelled at all the time because we're not paving it fast enough. And it's not us. So, and that was in their mention quite a bit. But there was also, I think, there's something to be said about there's a lot of positive feedback. And I'm excited to share that with the department heads so that they can share with, with the staff, the things that we're doing right. I think that's a bigger focus for us, because we are doing a lot of things. We, as, the department managers, the mayor, everyone's all working together to do this correctly. And I think that's great to see and get feedback from a stranger. They didn't have to sit and fill out that survey, but somebody did, and they put some really great feedback in there.
A quick review of the responses seemed that the pretty positive on the responses of how people view the departments. So I was impressed that the numbers were as high as they were.
And I'm hopeful that we can use this as a stepping, for additional surveys. I know, Rob, you hate surveys.
No, no.
But every once in a while, just to get because some people just don't want to come to city council and talk or send an email. So they're gonna put what they're upset about in the survey. And, to be able to give people a way to communicate and share information with us.
Yeah.
It's a start.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as far as the, positivity, negativity, I mean, in this day and age, with the negativity lodged at governments at all levels, I think this is hugely positive in a lot of ways. As far as your comment about surveys, I was just smiling because, at our comprehensive plan meeting, we've got 3 surveys going out, right?
Well, but they're different demographics.
I know, I just,
So
but
it's-
in that discussion, we were talking about all the other surveys, and there is survey fatigue that we have to be careful about.
I'm saying years.
I know,
I'm
I
saying-
know.
Yeah, I'm saying let's do it again in a couple of years.
Absolutely.
And then, change some of the questions that didn't make sense, see what else we get, see if things change,
Yeah.
depending on what we've added, what we've changed.
The only other component, and I brought this up at the comprehensive plan meeting, and again, these aren't hard and fast rules, but it's sometimes helpful to have some level of demographics. Now, a lot of times when you
Yeah.
ask people how much money they make, how old they are, that turns them off, and they may not want to even, respond. But it would be helpful to know if there's a certain, segment, whether it's age or education-wise, that has a more consistent feeling about our interpretation and of how they respond to these questions, then that's helpful information. You're talking about communication and marketing and all these things. Well, that's fundamental to those processes, as to who's your audience.
Well,
And
I
if we're
think too-
talking to the choir, then that's not this doesn't help us. But if we know there's a segment of our population that isn't satisfied, then maybe we need to figure out why and do a better job for them.
I think too, Rob, asking the question, how did you learn about this survey in the first place? Did most people get it from the water bill, or, did they see it passing at the library, or where did they learn? So that'll help get an understanding of the demographics as
Well,
well.
we have the ability with texting coming up. That might be something that
Information on there we can throw
we
out
can
there.
put it out there, hey, Ravenna has a survey now.
Yeah.
And it can go
Oh, the
boom,
alert
right
system.
there to
Use that
people's
system.
cell phone.
That's great, that's great.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I forgot about that, yeah. So, but
All right.
it's a nice start for something that we haven't done, so, thank you.
Good job.
And the information systems meeting at 6:48.
Okay, 6:45, Public Health and Safety Committee. I will call to order. First item on the agenda, and these should all go rather smoothly, nothing really too much to be concerned about. One is accepting a $100 donation from the Portage County Charity Horse Show. And this is, I believe, for the police department. Am I correct, Jeff?
Yes, Canine Fund.
The $100 donation from the horse fair?
This is the Canine Fund.
Well, yeah, that's the police department though.
Mhm, yeah.
Yeah. there's no match, and it's a donation, so thank you to the Portage County Horse Fair. I'm glad to see that is still going at this point, that that they still had it, so that was a kind gesture on their part. The second one is accepting a $200 donation from the Ravenna Elks Lodge. That as well is a donation that we are accepting. There is no match, and it's another gift from them. I believe they gave one last month, and now they're giving one this month. So thank you to the Ravenna Elks Lodge. Next one is an authorization to apply for the 2002-03 AFG grant. So I have the information. Chief Chappell apologized for not being able to attend tonight. He was going to watch another fellow firefighter be sworn in tonight as captain. So let me tell you what he had to say about this. Let me read it. Okay, so he said on this one, so the AFG grant, he says he's looking for a total of the grant to be about $40,000. Is that the right one? And he said it's about a $2,000 match. Any questions? It's pretty basic, he said, so he's looking for that one. The next one, the EMS, he said there is no match. It's assistance to firefighters, and he says is a 5%. So I don't understand. He said that there's no match, EMS, but then 5%. Brian, do you know what he's talking about on this one?
He didn't mention that one. He just said on the AFG grant it's gonna be used for equipment. I don't see anything on the EMS grant.
He says,
Alright.
yeah, that's all he said. As I asked him if there was anything specific I needed to know about it, and he said no. He said there's no match. So I guess we'll apply for the grant, no match, and see what happens next month at committee. So I kudos for him applying for a grant. I'm sure it's money that we will need, so I'll leave it at that unless anyone has any further questions at this point. Next one is amending codified ordinance section 244.05. He said there's a conflict on the EMS charge. We don't charge $50 for a non-transport. That line should have been removed when we didn't increase last year. It was just an oversight. So that is all we need to do with that, which is readjusting, which he'll take out. And anybody have any objection with that? Is there something wrong, Christina? Is it, do you read the ordinance or?
No,
Okay,
sorry.
that's okay. Anybody have any objection with that?
No.
Okay. Like I said, pretty simple. And last item was the purchase agreement for the striker and appropriating $50,000. That was what, some of the money that we had left over that we had talked about. This is for the lift cot. Again, this is something that was needed. Now it's getting the purchase agreement. Anyone have any questions?
This is the one that was $50,000, but the total price on it is $56,000. Is this one that we were talking about, Rob, of
Yeah,
it exceeds what
I
we,
talked to Chief Chappell, and they have $6,000 already allocated.
in another account? Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's small capital or something like that.
Okay.
He was
Yeah.
talking about that.
It does say in the tracking sheet, the remaining balance of this purchase will be paid from the fire department small capital line.
Oh,
Okay.
So it's, yeah, because I asked him to include that. And again, this goes back to the ARPA funding, and at the time we had the discussion, it was kind of an immediate need, so he went ahead and purchased it. I don't know, he said that they still hadn't gotten the right invoice, that the amount they invoiced for was a little more than it should have been.
That's
So
what
he,
I understand,
so he's
yeah.
supposed to still get a new invoice, so I don't know if it's actually been paid.
Yeah, he didn't say anything about it not, he
Yeah.
just said that was the money that, you know, we had allocated, that we had left over, so.
Yeah. Yeah,
Pretty
so-
basic, so it's just for what we had talked about, no
Yep.
changes for the lift cot. Okay, we'll go ahead and move that forward, Robin, Matt.
Yes.
All right, any management update?
No, not tonight.
Okay, what is it, 6:40,
54.
no, 6:55, we'll say, call it. Is that all? No, you're on now.
Yeah. 6:55, we'll call Streets and Sidewalks Committee meeting to order. 3 items on the agenda this evening. First item is purchase a new pickup truck for the street department and appropriate the $49,019. This truck's needed because they sent one to auction last year that they used to use in emergency situations if a sign was lost in a storm, an accident, whatnot, a street sign. They had a truck prepared to go out and replace these signs. That truck got to the point where it couldn't function anymore, so they sold it at auction. So the plan is to purchase this new truck for their fleet, use one of the older trucks, set it up as a repair truck for signs in emergency situations, if called by the police department, fire department. If it's a stop sign, it's important to get those replaced as soon as possible so additional accidents don't happen. So that's the plan with purchasing this new vehicle. It'll allow them to set up another one as an emergency sign repair vehicle. Any questions? We'll go ahead and move that item forward. Next item is the contract with Arbor Pro and to appropriate the $40,000. The actual cost should be around $37,485. We'd like to appropriate $40,000 for that contract. They sent a nice packet. I don't know if everybody's had the chance to see that. Did everybody get that, Tim? Tells a little about Arbor Pro, what they've done, how they go about their business, previous projects. This is the group that's gonna do our 7-year tree surveys. It's done once every 7 years. And we are still waiting to see if our grant comes through. If that comes through, we'll adjust on the fly, but we haven't heard from our grant yet to help offset the cost of this. This survey needs to be done by June, so just to be safe, we'd like to appropriate the money to make sure that this is taken care of, one way or the other. Any questions on that? We'll go ahead and move that item forward. And then the third item, Equalis Group, I'm not sure who sponsored this, don't have,
I put it on the
okay.
agenda to discuss. So, street department needs a new roof, and we had an estimate of $1 million that will be in the budget, the new budget. The Equalis Group is another type of bidding group that's been accepted by the state of Ohio. An agent will secure bids publicly on our behalf and share those results with us. Then city council would enter a contract, or authorize the mayor to enter a contract and appropriate the money. I guess money would be appropriated through the budget, through the budget.
What's the timeline for this?
This year.
Sometime this year.
Right. So the budget won't be approved till April?
It is in March, yeah, late,
End of
March, committee of the whole of March, probably will be
Okay,
when it's done.
so at that point, then we can move it forward. I just wanted to show you, here's another mechanism for bidding. And we've used Garland before on many roofs in the city in the last 10 years, and this is the process that they go through. I just wanted to share it with you, so there's no secrets. I'm not trying to hide anything.
This is for the facility on Oakwood Street
Correct.
Department building?
Yes, which will be paid off in another month.
That's what we understand, yeah,
That's-
at
okay.
the end of March, so, your last payment.
Any questions, comments on?
I'll give a comment pertaining to what was just mentioned. I was there at the street department recently, and that's what Mr. Finney is mentioning is in, I'll just say dire need without going into a lot of detail.
The building needs a lot of work, but to
Yes.
new building of that size would be very, very expensive. So Jason and Tyler believe the right thing to do is put a roof on it and preserve it. There's other work that will need to be done over the next couple of years, but obviously you gotta start with the roof.
And I'm not saying $1 million isn't much, but if you start all over from scratch, it would be many times,
Still have $1 million in a roof on a new building.
yes, just to start with. Okay, those are my comments.
We have nowhere else to put them, so we've got to keep them there. Any other questions, comments? We'll go ahead and move that forward as well. Do we have a management update?
No.
I just want to mention the bike rack. I brought one. We have the bike racks. If their city council would like to decide where to place them, have at it. Where I wanted to put them, there seems to be a park bench at every location, and I'm sure the park benches are bolted down. Would you like to touch it, feel it? No. Hold it?
Good looking at it.
You're welcome.
Give it a hug, Tim.
I carry it.
bike in.
But they're pretty stout, they're pretty solid. They won't withstand a car hitting them, so we kinda have to watch how close to the curb we put them. But I'm gonna try to, I'm
I
sorry.
was gonna say, I think unless anybody has a specific spot, I think we'd leave the judgment up to you.
Are you sure about that?
Bob, I think you'll be great
doesn't
at
want it.
deciding where those go.
We should have a year-end poll. How
I
many
think you'll let
bikes do we
Tim
see
do it
change
for
to
his
them?
new job.
Oh, there you go. I like
We
that.
definitely need one in front of the ice cream shop.
Yeah.
All right, I just wanted you to, and then we were supposed to receive the speed flashing signs today. They were gonna be delivered at the street garage. I didn't hear that they were delivered, but they were supposed to be. So we're gonna start working on getting those placed. Temporary placement so we can move them around.
That's great.
But I'm gonna try to get these installed before they start picking up bags and brush and all the other stuff, while there's no snow.
Good, thank you.
All right.
Nothing else, I will adjourn the Streets and Sidewalks Committee at 7:02.
Okay, at 7:02, Personnel Committee meeting is being called to order. Tonight, we have, for discussion items, payroll salary adjustments. And you've received some information that lists the positions that we're looking toward adjusting those. And I wanted to say that this discussion, because it's going to involve compensation of a public employee, I'm going to make a motion that we go into executive session to consider the compensation of a public employee.
I think Mr. Calfee knows this, but I'm going to object because I don't believe we're allowed to hold executive sessions at committee meetings. We've discussed this before, and I did bring with me a copy of an email from our law director dated July 28th, and it goes through the reasons why, and I'll try to make this as brief as possible. The Ohio Revised Code says it has to be at regular meetings. The word regular is used there, or special meetings. Now, if that were the extent of the discussion, I'd be a lot more open to the idea that we could hold an executive session during a committee meeting because they are regular. Unfortunately, our charter defines regular and special meetings and the regular meetings are the first Monday of each month, or if there's a holiday, the Tuesday afterwards. So anyway, back in July, when this came up, I can't remember the exact context at the time, but I asked Mr. Semino if he would review this, the situation, and he kind of, reiterated some of the things that I just said. But his conclusion at the end of his email was, I believe the appropriate manner of calling an executive session would be at a regular meeting or a special meeting, regular meaning the monthly meeting, at the beginning of the month, where the agenda includes the fact that the meeting includes an executive session. Now, look, we're a deliberative, democratic body. How you guys decide to proceed tonight is kind of up to you. I do believe that Dr. Calfee is going to say that it's up to the committee, which is a 3-member committee, which means 2 people can call an executive session during a committee meeting, which I find a little bit odd. The fact that we have this open meeting law throughout the state is designed so we don't abuse discussions behind closed doors, and that what we do is done in public. So those are the reasons I object to holding an executive session tonight, but you guys proceed in the committee as you see.
Yeah, we missed a call from Mr. Semino to clarify what he wrote to you. I'm fine with going into executive session. Chelsea has looked into it. You correct me if I'm wrong, but she is fine with what she looked at, and I've had lengthy discussions now with Mr. Calfee about this conversation tonight. So I'm fine if the committee wants to go into executive session. Regardless, we're going to be talking about payroll, salary, whether it's tonight or next week.
Well, I mean, that would be the other option, would be to hold a special meeting and then put it on the agenda to discuss it. In my opinion, I don't know that this is an immediate need. And I will, I'm not like telling on anybody, but I will communicate with the, law director myself. Just keep in mind, if anybody in the public objects to what we do tonight, we're subject to fines and legal action, and I think he needs to be aware, that we're going against his recommendation.
Now that it's out there,
Yeah.
I don't think we should.
At this point, I think your concern is duly noted, and it turns on the phrase of what a regular meeting is. And I believe the Ohio Revised Code definition of a regular meeting, there's 3 types of meeting: a regular, a special, and an emergency. And a regular meeting is one that's held periodically and has access to posting of what's going to be on it, time and date. Because of that definition, I believe a committee meeting is a regular meeting. And this is the crux of the disagreement. And then added into the fact that our charter refers to a regular meeting, but not necessarily in the same sense of the Ohio Revised Code definition of regular meeting. So given that, I would request that we go ahead and we can take the vote on going in, and we can go from there.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Like I said, this is,
And
this is what we do.
Yes.
This is what we signed
And-
up for, and I'm okay with whatever
Yeah.
the will of the majority is.
And if there is a concern over this, and it turns out that it is because of the way the charter is written or that section in the codified ordinances, then we need to change that, because an executive session for a committee is permissible under Ohio Revised Code and the public meetings law, 122. So with that, it may be an area that we have to get some clarification and a written legal opinion on, but my recommendation is tonight that we go ahead and take the vote on going into executive session and move forward from there.
There needs to be a second, too.
Yes.
Second.
Mr. Kelfie?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And with that, on the executive session, as with all executive sessions, the body can invite whomever they would like to be in that meeting. And for this meeting, we're requesting that the mayor, all council members are in the meeting, and others are not. And,
What about
Heather. Heather is also an invitee.